All right, looks like we have everyone back on. Again, I appreciate you all taking the time to chat today. My name is Riley Kilberg, and I am Rita Hart's Communications Director. I want to thank you all for taking the time to join us on New Year's Eve day. I know it's a busy day for some folks, but really appreciate you joining. As all of you saw, Rita filed her notice of contest with the House of Representatives last week under the Federal Contested Elections Act, urging them to ensure all voters have their votes counted in Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. In that notice, we identified 22 specific votes that were legally cast but not counted. The 22 votes include ballots that were cast both for Rita and Marionette Miller Meeks. Several of those voters submitted signed affidavits detailing why their votes should be counted. And if anyone needs a fresh copy of those affidavits, I'm happy to provide that following the call today. Additionally, these 22 ballots were sufficient to determine that Rita received more votes in this race, and yet she's still asking for a full recount to ensure that all ballots in this race were accurately counted. So today we have some of the voters who filed these affidavits with us on the line. They're here to share their story about how they voted and why their vote should be counted. I'm going to open up the call and toss it over to the voters so they can each share briefly their story and a little bit about themselves. We'll go around and speak to all of those voters, and then we'll open it up for a few questions at the end. Excuse me, so Sadie Bromberg and her mom, Susan Johnson, will start the call. Both of them are residents of Johnson County, and Sadie is currently a student at the University of Illinois, Chicago. I'll let you tell them a little bit about your experience, Sadie, if you want to go ahead now.
Yeah, so hi, my name's Sadie. Like you said, I go to UIC in Chicago, so I wasn't planning to be in Iowa on election day. So I applied for my absentee ballot, and when I got it, it was already sealed, probably from the rain or something. So I asked my mom to find out if it would be okay if I opened the envelope and resealed it with tape. So she called the Johnson County Auditor's office, and they told her it would be okay if I opened it and sealed it with tape and that the ballot would be counted. And so I did that. And then I later found out that my ballot was not counted due to like an issue with the envelope. So yeah, I was pretty disappointed because voting is very important to me as a woman and as an American citizen. I think it's important to exercise your right to vote. And yeah, I was very sad to hear that my vote wasn't counted because yeah, it's important to me.
Thank you, Sadie. Susan, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm Susan Johnson, and I live in Iowa City. I'm a retired University of Iowa faculty member. I've voted in every general election since I was 18 years old. And so I can only imagine for myself how that would be to not have my ballot counted. I normally like to vote in person, but especially this year with the pandemic, our whole family voted by absentee, and Sadie's was the only ballot for which there was a problem. I'll just confirm what Sadie said. She called me right away when she opened up the absentee ballot envelope. I immediately called the auditor's office because I was concerned, and I specifically asked twice if putting tape on it would be adequate, would be okay. And whoever I spoke with confirmed it with someone and got back on the phone and said, that'll be fine as long as it's sealed. So I'm of course disappointed for Sadie having this experience so early in her voting career, and hoping that won't happen again. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Sadie or Susan, is there anything else that either of you want to add just about the importance of it getting counted before I go to our next voter?
Well, I'll say that I always have had in my mind this imagined a vote that would come down to this few ballots, and I've never seen it before. And it made me, at first when I found out that Sadie's ballot didn't count, I thought, oh, well, surely it won't be the only one. And then when it's come down to 5 ballots, I realized how important it is to get every ballot counted, for sure.
All right, well, thank you. Our next voter is Mike Overholt. He is a resident of Johnson County. Mike.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mike Overholt, and I live in Iowa City. We actually moved recently to Iowa City, and we established residency here over the summer, and we were really excited about voting. My wife and I both were wanting to vote. And she was actually pregnant, and so we were being super careful with the pandemic. But we did find out that we could go in and vote early at the public library in Iowa City. And so we arranged for me to go in and vote that way. And because we have 5 kids, I mean, this is something where we have to kind of tag team things to make sure stuff gets done. And so I went in and I voted. I remember after I was done filling out the ballot that I had to lick the envelope. And I just remember that being a really odd experience given the current pandemic, and be so careful and having to wear a mask, but yet licking an envelope in the middle of a pandemic seemed off-putting, probably about as off-putting as blowing the candles out on a birthday cake is going to seem after this pandemic. So anyways, I submitted my ballot, and I sealed the envelopes as best I could, and then made sure to put them in the ballot box. And what I found out about mine was that the envelope the glue didn't stick right. And I guess this is kind of the opposite experience of what Sadie had, is that mine, the glue was not good enough, and it didn't seal. And so I was really disappointed when I heard that this was the reason why my ballot wasn't counted, just because of the number of sacrifices and arrangements we made to try to get this to take part in the vote. And I especially want my vote to count. I did it legally, and with the current political climate the way it is, where there's a lot of voter misinformation being spread without any evidence at all, for someone who made the effort and went the extra mile to make sure to get a vote in, I don't want my vote to be discounted just because the glue didn't stick on an internal envelope.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Mike. Next, I'm going to go to Jodana Letts, who is a voter and resident of Scott County in Iowa. Jodana?
Hi, I'm Jodana Letts from Scott County, Iowa. I received my absentee ballot, and I filled it out. I put it in an official envelope provided to me by the county. When filling the envelope, I accidentally ripped it. So we took it down to the auditor's office. I was standing in line. A gentleman came out that I took as an election officer, and he took my ballot. He looked at it and said, "This might not be reliable." And so I said, "Do I need to replace it right now, or I can go in and vote by person?" And he assured me that the county would reach out if the ballot was rejected, and I would still have a chance to vote. So I didn't think anything else of it. So I didn't hear anything from the county, except on election day I received a phone call that my absentee ballot was not going to be counted. I'm not sure of the source of the call. Based on the call, I went to my election day precinct. At the precinct, I talked to a poll worker. I told him about the call I received and my concern that my ballot would not be counted. So the election person called the auditor's office and asked whether my absentee ballot would be counted. The poll worker turned around to me and told me that my ballot would be counted. And so I said, "Thank you," and I left the building. And so I thought everything was good because I didn't hear nothing from anybody until you showed up at my door to tell me my ballot had not been received. I want my vote to be counted. I have voted ever since I've been 18 years old, and I think it's my right to do that, and I want certain people in the offices, and so I think something should be done. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Jordana. Next, I want to go to the last voter that we have with us today, Trajay Lackland, resident of Johnson County.
Hello, my name is Trajay Lackland. I'm 23 years old. He, him, his pronouns. Recreational therapy undergrad senior. So a little bit about my story is that this was actually my first time voting. I tried to vote the previous election, but I couldn't. So going down to my story, I went down to the IMU at the University of Iowa with a friend, and we utilized the early voting. So we walk in there, everybody was social distance, everything was really spread out. I actually caucused, so they had all my information and stuff. The only thing that ever changed was that I actually moved into an actual place and I didn't live on campus. So the only thing that really changed was my address. It was really smooth, like 5 minutes, nothing more than that. So as I'm walking to cast my vote, I cast my vote and I put it in the envelope. When I put it in the envelope, I kind of had a little trouble putting it in there, but I was like, maybe I put it in there wrong. And then after I did that, I went to go lick it. And when I went to lick it, my tongue kind of got caught in the beginning of it, but I didn't pay no attention. I just finished licking it. I play sports in college and stuff, so I'm pretty strong. And I pressed it to make sure that it was on there really tight. And then I put the ballot in and had nothing of it. But, thank God, you guys reached out to me and stuff, because I was thinking, what are they talking about? They reached out to me, and then I had a conversation with some people, and, now I'm here. And why I think that my vote needs to matter is because I'm really excited to vote. This is my first time voting, and I was really excited to elect Rita for my first person vote. And coming from history and stuff, and learning my history from the University of Iowa and stuff, and how people of color wasn't being able to vote it really hurts my heart that I didn't get to vote. And also with the whole pandemic and stuff and the whole election and everything, and to my first main candidate had dropped out and I had to change it. So having this stuff it really stresses me out, and I don't like that. Also being in school and dealing with the pandemic.
Appreciate that, Trajay. And I want to thank all of our voters for sharing their story today, fighting to make sure that their votes are counted. So I want to now open it up for questions. For our reporters on the line, if you could go to the participants tab, raise your hand, we'll call on you. I want to ask that you just give your name, the outlet that you're with, and then if you could also direct your question to one of the voters, just to make it a little bit easier for everyone. Fine if the question is for multiple voters, but if you want to identify someone that you'd like to start with, that would be helpful. And so please feel free, like I said, to raise your hand now and we will call on. All right. Todd Magel.
Hi, can you hear me, Riley?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I'm a reporter at KCCI TV over in Des Moines. So this would be a question either for Michael or for Trajay, I guess. How did you guys find out that your ballots were somehow corrupted and not counted? What can you talk about that process?
Yeah. So when the first instance that I had gotten a wind of it was somebody reached out to me on Instagram, and I'm a pretty private person. I mind my business. So when this person is reaching out to me and it's my request, I'm looking at them, I'm like, what are they talking about? Like I'm saying, it's my first time voting and stuff, and I'm like absentee, but I'm like, what were they talking about? And then I messaged them, and then I told him I voted in person. It can't, nothing. How could it? It should be fail safe. How could I mess up in person? I did it in person. So then after that, somebody came to my house. They talked to me about it and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this must be serious now. If you have to come out to me, like sort me out and find where I live and stuff, with no problem with that, because I would want you to do that. So that's how I found out. And then after that, after I talked and I signed my stuff and everything and gave my story, I'm here now. So
yeah, that sounds oddly similar to what mine was like. I had gone in and voted in person early, and I was a couple of people stopped by from the Democratic Party, and were saying we just wanted you to make sure that you got your vote in. And I said yes, I got my vote in already, but there wasn't any information that there was a problem with the vote that I had cast. I told them, in fact, there was 3 different people that came by, and I said I voted already. I went into the library, I voted, and they all said, oh, I'm so sorry, we'll try to make a note of this. But what didn't seem to be communicated was that there was a problem with the vote that I had submitted. They just were notified that I hadn't voted. And so, but I always told them, I said, well, I'm voting early. My wife's going to vote on election day itself. But I've already voted. And so they just responded, oh, I'm sorry, we'll make a note of this and make sure not to, to bother you anymore. And it wasn't a bother. It was just looking back on it now, I realized, oh, they were being notified. It's maybe that I had a problem, but that wasn't communicated. That wasn't communicated to me.
So just for clarification, so both of Michael and Trajay, it was the Democratic Party that came to both of you, or was it an election official from the county that said there's a problem? I'm just confused.
For me, it was folks from the Democratic Party who came to me. I eventually got a letter saying that there was a problem, but there was no checkbox to say, like, I got a letter saying there's a problem with my ballot, but there was no checkbox to say what was problematic about it. It was very opaque.
Perfect.
An official visited me, an official.
From the Democratic Party, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the next question will be Tom Barton with the Quad City Times. Tom, you should be unmuted.
Thank you. This question is for Joe Donna. So I'm curious, did you speak directly at all to the county auditor's office or the county auditor regarding your ballot, or I guess was there any follow-up communication from them after your interaction with the poll worker?
When I went to turn my ballot in, the official came out and he looked at the ballot and he says, I don't know if this is going to go through. I asked him, I said, well, do you want me, to tear it up and re-vote here while I'm standing in line? He says, no, we will get a hold of you to let you know if it didn't go through. So I thought everything was fine. Then I received that phone call on election day, and I went to my precinct and talked to a poll worker. And I told him about the phone call that I had received, that my ballot was not any good. So he proceeded to call the auditor's office, and he talked to him. I did not talk to him. And so then he relayed the message to me that my ballot was good.
I just have a quick follow-up. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just have a quick follow-up. So that phone call that you received informing you that there was a problem with your ballot, you said you were unsure of the source of that call. Did the person on the other end identify themselves in any way? I'm just kind of confused by that.
I'm sure they did, but it just took me off by surprise, so I didn't pay any attention to who they were or the name.
Perfect. Thanks, Jordana, and thank you, Tom. We've got time for one more question, so I'm going to go over to Kate Payne with Iowa Public Radio. Kate, you should be unmuted.
Okay, thank you. This is really to any of the voters. We've seen Republican officials say that every legal vote has been counted and that this process should be over and settled with. And I'm curious just to get you all's reaction to that argument.
I think that, honestly, I don't even know. Like, I don't know where to start. I mean, I don't really hate somebody if they're Republican. I don't really care what your political party is. It's what you do in your homes, what you do. It's what you do out in the public and how you display your image and stuff. But if they're saying if they're saying all the votes are counted and stuff, but then there's 20 votes that's not counted, that just doesn't make sense. And they're legal votes. So how are you going to tell 20 people who voted in person or who sent their absentee ballot that they didn't vote? That doesn't make sense to me. You can't sit here and tell me that all the votes are counted, but I'm sitting here telling you that, and somebody saying like the votes are not counted. You just can't do that. It's clear evidence that states that we all voted and we all turned in our absentee ballots and it's all there and it's all displayed, but something happened, a defective like letter or something happened because mistakes happen, but you're not going to count our vote because mistakes happen. You can't do that. That's not right. That's not human, because everything has to be counted for. And if they don't, then we just recount them again. And that's the thing that's going on. You can't sit here and say that they're all voted, they're all counted for. But if somebody on their party didn't win, do you think that they would be saying the same thing? You know what I'm saying?
This is Jordana. My vote has not been counted due to the error of the election officials, and that's not right. They had a chance to let me vote 2 times. They could have done at the auditor's office, and then they could let me do it again at the precinct. And they kept saying no, that it was that I had voted, which really I hadn't. So I don't think that's right.
I think for me, it just makes me curious about other states and how many votes may or may not have been counted in other states, and like how that has affected the vote there. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not too surprised that they said that all the votes were counted, because I don't know, they got who they wanted. But I'm glad that we're doing this, and it's pretty obvious that, at least in Iowa, not all the votes were counted.
I'd like to respond. And by the way, I want to say thank you to all of the reporters who showed up for this. I wasn't expecting this many, but I think my own reflection on the voting system is that it is like everything. It's susceptible to error, but when we know that there are ways to make things right, we should do everything in our power to do it. I mean, that's the human experience. We do the best we can, and if we see some mistakes that were made along the way, we make a fair judgment about what needs to be done. And I think that sense of fairness is what's really at stake here, is people who have gone about it to the best of their ability legally to submit a ballot. We want our votes counted. We want to take part in this process. We believe in this process. We believe in a right to a fair election and to participate fairly within that election too.
I got one more thing to say before we head out. I just want to say this is a great example of people who think that votes don't count and they don't matter. And when people say that my vote doesn't count, this is a very prime example. And this example should be displayed, and it should be showed to places to show how important it is to vote. Because if you asked me 2 years ago if I was going to vote, I would have told you no. And I would have said the same thing until I got out and I got educated about it. And it really, at the end of the day, is just education. You have to educate yourself about what you do, because, even if you are that one person, are you using that vote in the right way? And I think that in this election, in the last election, I think that it's a lot of pressure on people socially. And I say that with 100% because there's a lot of people out there that sometimes are pressured to vote for people or do things that they don't want to do because of the people they're around. You know, you are a product of your environment. If you're around a bunch of people that are Republicans, you're going to probably be a Republican. You know, sometimes you might get a few little oddballs and stuff that, you know, may become Democrats or, you know, liberals. But if you're usually around that, that's what you're going to do. And sometimes some people are afraid to speak out. And I think that's really what it is at the end of the day. So I feel like wrapping up what I'm saying is, I really feel like this is a great example of how the power of votes are used.
Thank you. I appreciate that from all of our voters. And I want to thank all the reporters for jumping on today. If anybody has any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to get you whatever you need. But again, just want to thank our voters and you know, continue working to make sure that all voters have their votes counted in Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. So thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
Riley. It's Todd at KCCI. Can you just answer a question for me about the status of her notice of contest, like what's happening as of today, so we can put this whole thing in context about the latest?
Sure, I'm happy to follow up with you right after this, Todd. I can do that.
Can you do it on camera here on the Zoom call?
Sure, I'm happy to follow up with you afterwards. If that
Okay.
works. I just want to. This call's about these voters, so I can do that.
Okay.
This
Thanks,
is
Todd.
Tom Barton with the Quad City Times. I just got a quick question. I see that this is being recorded. Is this recording going to be provided?
I can get that over to you, Tom. All right, thanks, everyone.